It's all led up to this. Months of hard work from the cast and crew will be shown to an audience of thousands. As cast and crew get ready for opening night, checking orchestra, snow machines, sets, and mics, they wonder if their long rehearsals have prepared them enough.
I think we're pretty good. All the actors have been doing so well with the props, so I think it's going to be great.
I'm a little bit nervous, but that's good. You need to have a little bit of nerves in order to perform well. That's what I always think. I'm very excited. I think it's going to come together. I'm hoping and praying that it does. And I'm looking forward to having a great show.
After mic check, the company gathers in the hallways for Circle, a theater tradition to warm up and wish everyone good luck for the performance ahead.
When I graduated from high school, I thought that my days of theater were over, and I am so glad that the universe proved me wrong, and I'm so glad that you all welcomed me. I think I am the newest staff member to your theater, and it's as much of a privilege of me to be with all of you, and break legs.
If you're supposed to be singing backstage, or if you don't know if you're supposed to be singing backstage, please see me before we go out. All right, break a leg.
What I just want to say standing here in Circle is I'm always amazed if I look around. Look how many people have worked so hard, incredibly hard, for this opening night. Again, reminder, you're telling a story tonight. Make sure you make connections with one another on the stage. And then those connections will then reach out into the audience, and then from the audience back to the stage.
Pull your energy together, pull everything in. This is a wonderful journey we've all been taking, and we're just at the very beginning of it. Once upon a time, Jack Lemmon was in a play, and he was in a play with a lot of people on Broadway, and they were so excited to be in this play. Do we have the little girls okay? And Jack Lemmon was a wonderful actor, and everybody was so excited to be with him in this particular show. And they noticed as they got closer to opening night, Jack Lemmon would go by himself to the corner of a stage, and he'd be whispering to himself. And everybody wanted to know. They wanted to know what he was saying. So every night they got a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer, until on opening night they heard him saying, "It's magic time!" Shh! Into places. Let's make some magic quietly.
And just like that, it was time to make some magic.
Opening night, I'm a little nervous for opening night, just because I feel like this is such a big show and so many people are expecting a lot from it. But at the same time, I think we're ready. I think we're gonna make a pretty good show, so I think it's gonna be good.
I'm a little nervous about opening night. Like, I think the Gold Card show went pretty well, but we got to see what's gonna happen on opening night, and it might come together. I hope it comes together, but we'll see.
Once there was a family with secrets to keep, as rulers in a land where respect for the crown runs deep, and so families of respect, and how the watch
So both dresses were made by different people, and then my first dress has magnets in it. And the first show, we got a little caught up, I got a little stuck. And it's okay, we fell back, didn't fall off, so we're all good. After that, we figured out the issues, and we got it right every time after that. And then they started adding the lighting, and it looks incredible.
my thought process on Deb Buckner and her choreographer, she's the best choreographer I've ever worked with. She is an amazing storyteller. She is absolutely right on about what stories we're telling and the characters and motivations. And she really knows how to take movement and make high school kids look good. She knows taste and discretion. And those are the two words that Howard Prince also used, was taste and discretion in theater. And that has to do with understanding the playwright's intent. We were having the hardest time coming up with, in our production, with our look, how we wanted the hidden people to look for Fixer Upper and Patty and Bulda. And they ended up being the costumes that actually worked the best. And we went, holy cow, these are working, these look great. With the idea of the hexagons and the girl dancers, and they are snowflakes too. We wanted to get that sense of movement that animation can give to the
I can't wait to do Colder by the Minute. It's been my favorite for all of rehearsals, and I just think it's going to be such a cool experience, especially when it starts to snow and everything. It's really cool.
So the hexagons provided that, and then she came back to me and said, what if we use those for the end of the show when we get into the whole swirling of the storm and everything, Colder by the Minute. And I said, I think that would be great. And the night we choreographed it, it was like, oh my gosh, like, are these people going to be careening off the stage?
After the show, the company gathered outside to meet family and friends. And with one show down, there were 6 more to go.
And a little closer. And a little closer. Until on opening night they heard him say,
It's magic time!
All right.
Think.
Hello and welcome to Frozen Defrosted. Today, this is the reflection episode because the show is over. We have most of our directors here to talk about their experience with the show and how this show affected them. So if everyone could just introduce themselves and what they did on the show, their title, position, that would be perfect.
Hello, I'm Andrea Lee Roney, and I'm the producer and co-director.
Gloria Riley, and I was the vocal director.
I'm Joe Santinello, and I direct the orchestra.
Chris Young, assistant technical director.
Ryan Rudell, sound production, and then house as well.
Charlie Kleinschmidt, technical director.
Jody Biegert, costume shop manager and co-designer.
Meg Pierre, and I was the assistant choreographer.
Yay! We'll edited applause so it sounds more interesting than it is. Hello everyone, how's everyone feeling?
Really good.
I'm alive.
Wonderful. Great, wonderful.
I'm alive.
Things are happening. Yay.
All right, so clearly this was a popular show. I mean, we were sold out every night. Have you guys heard feedback that you found really compelling to you?
So the one comment that I heard over and over again from audience members and then like through staff from audience members as well was that they just kept forgetting that these were high school kids. That's what I heard over and over and over again. It's like, I can't believe these are high school kids. I can't believe they're high school kids. You forget when you're watching that it's a high school production. So that was really cool to not only have a sold out house and to put like everybody put their blood, sweat, and tears into the show, but to also have the audience go, yeah, like it felt like a professional production, which was really cool.
It's a great testament to the work we've done.
One of the things that I heard, which I thought was pretty impressive, was people were upset that they only bought tickets for one show. I heard many people say, I wish I would have known I would have bought multiple tickets for multiple shows.
That's great. And specifically about, we can go back to the shows, but how do you guys think opening night went? And then how do you think that evolved from opening to closing? How drastic do you think the change? Do you think the second weekend had something to do with that?
I will say opening night, we were praying really, 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 really hard.
Opening night.
In life or tonight?
Tonight.
Speak your truth. Speak your truth.
I feel excited, but I also feel like tonight's show is going to look different than the rest of them.
Uh-huh.
I feel kind of like magical up here. And like I'm stapling things onto the set before we open the house.
Let's go.
Had a couple
So I need to
of
continue?
things that happened, which always do, near fiascos, and we fix them, and we do, but it makes it a nail biter. And so opening night was kind of like, can we pull it off again? And we did. And I sat there amazed at our students. It's one of those moments as a director when you walk around, and Mrs. Buckner and I always say this, you walk around to the front on opening night and you're praying and you're giving it over to everybody else and you pray that it's all going to work. It's about the audience having an experience with the students on stage, and the students were absolutely remarkable.
Doesn't end.
Yeah, I'll say, having the opportunity to do the second weekend this year was really great because, again, so much work went into the show. It's so complicated, and it's so nice to give the students the opportunity to just continue refining, and also start to reach a level of being comfortable performing the show. I just know from the orchestra point of view, by the 6th and 7th and 8th time we're performing the show, it starts to become a little bit fun, which is a good thing. Instead of just panicked, edge of your seat, I hope everything goes right, we started to be able to relax and just enjoy what we were doing. And it really just, it made it a much more enjoyable performance experience for the kids.
Yeah, it was deeper and richer as we went through. And I will say to anybody who wants to listen that the Thursday night rehearsal, when we came back, and we didn't use costumes to give you guys a chance to get ready for the second weekend and strike and all of that, but the orchestra showed up in their Hawaiian shirts and their leis to be in summer, and because they were tired of being cold. And I said to the cast, look, just relax and have fun. Still, you have to hit every mark, you have to hit every scene change, you have to hit every note of the music, but have fun with it. And it took until about this young lady is Sven, and Christoph and Anna and a few of our crazier seniors arrived on stage that they started to loosen up and really have fun. But they hit the show and they made it their own. And it's going to go down as my favorite performance of all time at North Penn High School Theater. I truly believe it. It was just great. And they made it their show. You relaxed into it and you made it your show. And that's what you want.
And that dress rehearsal was my favorite performance as well. How long have you been directing?
This is the end of my 18th year, but I'm actually at 37 shows because I directed Once Upon a Mattress when I was student teaching.
It's crazy. And how many of those did Mrs. Buckner?
Every single one.
Oh
We've
my
been
gosh.
paired every single one. And she goes back even farther than that because North Penn High School Theater started under when she was a student here. And so I think it was in her junior or senior year, the choreographer stepped out and she stepped in and did the rest of the choreography. for the show. I actually saw a production of Oklahoma that she was in, and she danced the Dream Ballet. And then she went away to college for 4 years, and then she came back to North Connecticut Theater and didn't leave.
Because you guys have been directing together for so long, that must mean that you guys have quite a system going on.
We discovered our system when I was teaching, and this is like a third career for me, coming into public school. And I was suddenly, Miss Loudon, Cynthia Loudon, who started the program, said to me, take it, just go ahead and direct it. And I'm like, okay. And I've been a part of the audition process and designing the set and stuff, but Deb and I had never worked together before. And so we just said, I'll start directing the scenes, and when it gets to the song, we'll say, well, we'll just move things if we need to for Mrs. Buckner, and she was doing the same thing with choreography and saying, well, we'll just move things a little bit if we have to adjust for the scenes. And we got to the end of the first weekend, and the woman playing the queen, still a dear friend, Devin Taylor, said, what are you two talking about? We're always exactly where we need to be for the dance, and we're always exactly where we need to be for the scene. What's going on here? And that's when we realized that we really had a very similar vision about things. And it's a little creepy when you sit with us watching a show, because like we say things at the same time, and if somebody's taking notes first, we're whispering the same note in that person's ear, and we really do have a very united vision about things, which has just made our collaboration a dream.
Free-flowing, they should be abstract instead of concrete, because that's exactly how we're doing the whole show. So for the boy.
Was there a lot of pressure to make this production like the movie or like the original Broadway version? I know we wanted to stray from it, but what?
It's its own piece, and because we had never seen the Broadway show, Deb and I, we didn't want to. We didn't want to look at versions at it. We wanted to do how we were interpreting the show, how we, as we collectively, were interpreting the show, rather than be caught into some way or trapped into some way. And truly, I believe that was Disney's mission to us, that they wanted to see how different high schools of different sizes, different scope, different technical capabilities could articulate the show, so that as they develop the high school version, that it really has the opportunity for anyone to take this on and know that they can do it.
In keeping with the theme of the show coming directly from Broadway, Mr. Santinello, how do you think that affected the orchestra?
Well, can I answer the other question real quick first? I think you said something like, did you feel a lot of pressure to make this great or perfect? Yes. Yeah, I mean, I did personally. I felt an enormous amount of pressure. I just felt like we needed to make this the best thing that ever happened on the stage at North Penn. Especially the amount of shows we were doing, and knowing before we even started selling tickets that we would be selling out every night. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure to make it great. So the music coming straight over from Broadway, I think a lot of times when they prepare a musical to be performed by high school students, there is certainly some editing that's done to make it playable by students or playable by a non-professional orchestra, and that wasn't the case with this show. They pretty much handed us the books. They ripped the books out of the Broadway people's hands and handed it right over to us. So I mean, it was really hard, and the music was really, really, really challenging, surprisingly challenging. My vision for an ensemble that I direct, whether it's a jazz band or a concert band or a pit orchestra, I think I have an idea in my head of exactly what I think it should sound like, and I do whatever I can to motivate the students and teach them how to reach that vision. It was a little bit more intense, a little bit less relaxed than I would have liked to be, but it had to be non-stop hard work until opening night. So
Definitely paid off. The pit sounded great every single night. Mrs. Riley, vocally, how do you think the show went, and what was that progress like?
I think they handled it very, very well, and every show that we did, I thought, got progressively better. They got more confidence. They really embraced the character that they were playing. And I think vocally we really nailed it when we cast the show, because every singer could handle every part they were given. So I was very proud of them. And, nothing is perfect, but I think it was pretty darn close.
It was really well done, and a lot of what makes the show great is what you feel from hearing it and watching it, and a lot of that comes from the costumes. The speaker. What was the initial vision of the Frozen costumes? And then what were some of the biggest challenges of costuming this huge show?
Definitely the biggest challenge is the restrictions Disney puts on their shows. That, you know, you want you to put your vision on it, and you're not copying them, you're not copying their costumes, but we want all these little girls coming in their dresses to be able to look and say, oh, that's definitely Anna or Elsa. Yeah, so Mrs. Roney and Mrs. Buckner got together and really investigated the background of the original Fable, the Snow Queen, and that was set in more Scandinavian, countries and times, and really liked that vision. So that's kind of what we went with, which was a lot of the simple waistlines and the large flowing sleeves that you saw on a lot of the cast members. Sven was obviously a very huge challenge. Luckily, we found a Sven that we were able to rent, because as talented as we are, it was just not coming together as much as we liked. And
So that we can put all these in there. So look.
Huge challenge was the ensemble being in so many different numbers, and all those costume changes that the ensemble needed to create those different characters throughout the whole time. Making sure they were settled and good, and not losing their costume pieces repeatedly was a challenge, but we got there and we got through, and things eventually worked out, which was great.
Another thing to keep in mind with costuming is how it will move, which is when we get to dance. Guys, my transitions are made up on the fly. I'm so good. Mrs. Pierre, this is your first time choreographing the high school's production, and you were taken under Mrs. Buckner's wing. So how was that process kind of for you?
Well, honestly, working with Mrs. Buckner was so good in general. As you heard, she has worked with Mrs. Roney for years and years and years. So when I first stepped into this role, I was like, oh, holy guacamole, like, who am I to come into this power duo? Where do I fit in? And it was so welcoming. It was amazing. I learned so much. I've choreographed lots and lots and lots of shows on my own, and I truly had never really worked with anyone like this, like, closely, and it was amazing. I was super intimidated to come in and be the new person, but as welcoming as this staff is, you guys as a student body are amazing, and this cast was so easy to work with.
Are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing at your face.
Mr. Gay, Mr. Young, what was the process of building the set? What were some of the biggest challenges? Did it end up looking like what you guys initially dreamed up?
No, they did not end up the way we originally dreamed. But it normally happens like that, because when we have our roundtable sessions and everyone has an idea on what they're seeing the scene to be, when you finally put all the ideas together, you end up with a great show. If we all had our individual ideas and we tried to do that, it would not work. But one of the biggest problems with this show was that you had to get the audience to know where they were in every scene. Every scene changed, and you were in a different location. So we had to be able to do that quickly, but some of the props, of course, are going to be too big to do that. So that's where we all came up with the idea to fly a lot of the props so that we didn't have to put them out in the wings. We could get them off the stage. But the fact that the show was just constant and came together all the time, every scene was running right after the other, and there was no potential blackouts so that you can switch things, made it definitely more difficult. But my stage crew was incredible.
Mr. Young, do you have anything to add?
I think the beginning part was the hardest from my point of view, because we had no stage to work on. We had 20 kids standing around, 3 drills, what are we going to do? And we started putting stuff together and no place to store it, so then we started moving stuff down to my room. So now my room has, everything is down there, so every night we're taking things down, moving back. I think the beginning was definitely the hardest, because we had to do stuff. but there was no place to put it, and everything was so big. I think there's just the size of some of the things where there was no options for us to go anywhere. So a lot of things kind of evolved, not from what they initially were going to look like, but they evolved in a good way. All turned out well.
I agree. The set looked beautiful every night, and that was also due to lighting. If Noah was here, I would throw to him because that was a perfect throw, but it's fine.
Do you want me to jump in?
I would
Have
love
you
you to.
heard the Noah question? Have you heard where Noah met the Magic Man?
I heard a story, but
Okay.
I don't know if I'm sure on the details.
So-
you might need to recap.
So Mr. Golden calls me, and he's in New Jersey at some big mall out where they have the indoor ski slope, and it's out by the football stadium out there. And it was a project for years. It's finally finished. So it's a massive mall, and he's out there, and he calls me and he goes, "Dude, I just came out of Toys R Us." But whatever. We're not going to get into why you're at Toys R Us. And he goes, "There was a magic guy there, and he has the coolest snow magic." And I told him we're doing a production of Frozen. And he's like, "Oh, I have so many resources for you." And so you never know who you're going to run into and how they're going to change the direction of the show and what they're going to bring to a production. And that's part of the magic of theater, is whether you put in 1,000 hours into a production or it's a 30-minute conversation with a guy outside of Toys R Us who knows magic, they all bring a little piece of a puzzle to make a production as amazing as it is.
Can I interject for a moment?
Please.
Okay. Back when I sent off the application on August 8th, we did not have a technical director. Mrs. Buckner had retired as the choreographer, so we didn't have a choreographer. We didn't have a costume designer. We didn't have. And my husband said, "Are you nuts?" And I'm like, "No, I truly believe that people happen, that people will come, that this will happen, that if we get the opportunity to do this show, that it will fall into place." And every time we were in need of something, somebody stepped forward. Somebody said, I know somebody to do this. I know somebody who can do this. One of us stepped forward on the crew. A student stepped forward. Something happened, and the magic continued.
Yes, I so agree. Everyone totally stepped up. And Mr. Riddell, you mentioned that a show takes a lot of little parts to make it as magical as it is. And one of those huge parts is the audio.
This was really going back to the drawing board from a sound standpoint and saying, what have we been doing for the last 10 years? What works? What doesn't work? We identified some issues. We used to live in the booth in the back when we did sound, and we would try to mix from there. And you've got two little speakers, and it sounds amazing back there for you. And then there's 1,700 people in here that can't hear the dialogue, or they miss a line, or it doesn't sound quite right, or it's too shrill, or the list goes on and on and on. And so we did it for one of the reasons we moved into the house for Radium Girls, which was the first time we'd done that in years. We used to do it before we had the booth. Was to get that audience perspective and to see if we could do it logistically for Frozen. That's really what it was for. It was a workshop type situation. And then, there's so many other things in the mix. You've got an acoustic pit in the house that, there's so many competing energies in a room when you have that much just noise. And there's only so much that the human ear can comprehend and ascertain at the same time. So when you have all these competing things, you have to pare things down. You have to see where things fit. And it literally took myself, Jordan Kayak, who's a contracted audio engineer who we brought in to mic the pit, and Noah Golden, all three of us working collectively to iron out bugs and to just keep working and working and working in this iterative process, and to just keep going until we got it to the point where it was good and it sounded consistent, and people could hear lines, and people could hear dialogue, and people could hear the music and the balance between the pit and the singers, and who could hear who and who could see who. We did so many things technically that we'd never done, and we took a lot of risks, and they really paid off, thankfully. It could have been an absolute disaster. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the North Penn Educational Foundation, who had recently approved a grant for a considerable amount of audio equipment for us that sort of took us from, 2008, 2010 technology to, 2023.
Because this was such a long run and we had such a great production, do you guys have a favorite memory from doing the show? Anything that stands out from rehearsals or when you get together with either the pit or the crew? Or
There's a lot to
there's
a lot to
This
think about.
It covers months.
Down to one in our head right now.
One of my favorites was Higa. Every night, Nick would nail that, and then he'd add on to it the next night, and then he'd add on to it. And then when the dancers would come out in front of the curtain and the pit would slow down to that really slow for the kick line, that was one of my very favorite spots. Yeah.
It's basically impossible, and I saw everyone smile when you asked that question, because we just started thinking of all the amazing moments we had over the course of the run. It's really hard to pick one. I told the orchestra at the end, before the final show, I said, I could honestly go through the score in my head and think of something that every single individual person in the pit does really well in this show. There's like something that each one of you does that makes me smile. And of course they're like, okay, tell each one of us what that thing is. And I'm like, I can make you a list right now. But really, there were so many opportunities for so many students to showcase their talents in so many different ways. And again, the same thing with the pit. I mean, it's such a big orchestra. The music is so rich and lush and just all out Disney. It gave the kids so many opportunities to shine, and just so many beautiful moments. I shouldn't mention any, because then I'll be forgetting like somebody else that did something equally amazing. But I'm just really proud of the orchestra every night for what they did, and for them allowing the singers to flourish then.
I think one of my moments is Owen Purdy, because when we decided that we were going to have two people in Sven, he ran around for a while going, I'm the back end of Sven, and being very excited about it. And then when they were trying, there were so many prototypes to make Sven work as a two-person character, and we were literally like April 3rd, and we were opening April 27th, and the staff all kind of independently started coming to me and saying, it's not going to happen, and we need to do something here. And some research had already been done to find a character. And I was watching Owen in rehearsal that day, and we were doing a lot of the group numbers, and we were missing somebody. It was spring break, and it wasn't mandatory rehearsals, and most everybody was there, but there was a young man who had to go visit his grandmother. And so I said to Mrs. Buckner, let's throw Owen up there in place of the person we're missing, and see how he likes it.
Thankfully, she had been trying it out, putting me in some of the ensemble numbers, helping me out. And so I also had some of people like Nick and Katie, who were also being added to the ensemble during this time. So therefore, I kind of had those people to help me. And it was just a really good experience it was a very bonding experience to meet with everyone and go and learn the choreography and stuff.
And by the end of the rehearsal, he had the biggest grin on his face, and he was just loving every minute of it. So that's when I went to him.
Mrs. Roney took me aside one day and told me, hey, we know that you've been working on this role for a while, but we have to put you in the ensemble.
And I knew he was disappointed at first, but he sucked it up, and literally in 2.5 weeks, he learned the entire show of what he didn't already know.
But it was so stressful. The stressful number every single night for me was Huga, just because of how crazy and chaotic it is. And I knew most of the choreography from the auditions, but I didn't know some of the other choreography and where it was being set, put in the number every night. Every night I had a new position. It was kind of incredible. But overall, it was just a wonderful experience, but it was so stressful. Oh my God.
And that to me is the epitome of what theater's all about. That to me says he cared about the company over himself. He cared about the show over himself. He was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that show was good. And he was fantastic on stage in the ensemble. and we needed him. We had lost 2 young men from the company for various reasons, and we needed we needed that, and we needed his voice, and being the back end of Sven wasn't helping with the voice and the vocals. So I was so proud of him for his willingness to do that, and I think he deserves a big shout out for that.
Oh, I was going to say a favorite moment happens twice in the show. I got to watch the show from the back of the house pretty much every time. And every night when those little kids got to turn their wands on during Let It Go, I can't even explain to you. That is pure joy. Like, that to me, every night was like, this is why we do live theater, because yes, it's rewarding for all of us. And yes, you love to perform, but those kids were so in love with this whole production, and the waving of the wands was so beautiful. I literally would like tear up every time, because it was just such a perfect live theater moment. I'm sure it was distracting, and I'm sure it did something to the lights, but it was perfect.
My favorite memories are a little different, because other than the one show, I didn't really see what was going on out here. And to narrow it down is very, very hard when I have a really good one. Once Mr. Nicholas Skopel got into costume as Olaf, he would not take it back off. He was in character, and that was it. And all of you students are fed intermission snacks to keep you going, all healthy, of course, and nothing greasy for the costumes. And we would say, Nicholas, do you want an intermission snack? No, I can't. Wait, I can't. And finally one day I said, Nicholas, one of us will go get you the snacks and help you, Okay. So he told me what he wanted, and I brought it back to him, and it was one of those nice performances where he was overheating. So we had him sitting out by a back door that was propped open to get some air on him, and he proceeded to eat the carrots. And then we had about a 15 to 20 minute conversation on if that was cannibalism, because he has a carrot nose. And I learned a lot from that young man, because he is a pretty intelligent young man. And that was probably one of my favorite conversations. We analyzed that for at least 20 minutes, and it was a good time.
Nick was a trooper. But Frozen was it was so special, and it was so special because of what you guys gave to it. And so we, as a collective student body, because I think most of us, all of the students here that are here for this, we were all a part of the show, and we all appreciated your work so much. Not appreciate it, not past tense. We still appreciate your work. It was so special to be a part of, and thank you guys so much. Welcome to Frozen Defrosted Episode 3, Reflections. This is the interview with the cast. Hello, everyone. How's everyone feeling?
Really good.
I'm alive.
Wonderful.
Great, wonderful.
I'm
Things
alive.
are happening.
Yay.
My name is Audrey Keller. I am a senior, and I created Frozen Defrosted, and I played Sven.
My name is Ellie Ustazen. I am a junior, and I played Elsa.
I'm Avery Lawrence. I'm a senior, and I was a part of the ensemble.
My name is Nora Elif. I'm a senior, and I played Anna, Princess of Arendelle.
My name is Owen. I'm a senior, and I was also ensemble.
My name is Jack Bachman. I am a senior, and I played Kristoff.
My name is Nicholas Nardone. I am a senior. I played King Agnar and Oaken.
My name is Jamie King, and I'm a senior. I played Hans.
My name is Jack Robert Salata. I'm a junior. I played ensemble, Hans's understudy, and Pabby.
And I'm Nicholas Skopel, and I played Olaf, and I'm a sophomore.
All right, cool. Now, to jump right into it for the first time ever. So the show was really special to a lot of us, and it was special to the community. So what was the type of feedback that you guys have gotten on the show?
I mean, obviously, feedback was all very positive. I sure hope no one would give me negative feedback, or any of us negative feedback. But I'd say my favorite feedback that I received was not from people in the school, but from people just like out in the community. Like I teach tennis lessons to kids, and I like help with the swim team, and like sometimes the kids will just come up to me like in the grocery store or at the gym, and they'll say, "Oh my God, we saw Frozen and we loved it, and we love Sven and we love Elsa and Anna." And I was like, it's just the cutest thing ever, and it's my favorite like thing ever in the entire world. It's the kids that make it so great.
From the Gold Card show, I was given not some positive reflections or anything from any of the people that I work in the retirement home with, but I still got here and there like a little thing where it's like, oh, you kids did good, but it wasn't as good as Singing in the Rain, which is fair because that wasn't like the show from their time.
Some of the most interesting and fun feedback that I got, I guess fun, was not verbal. So like you'd imagine in the last few shows of our run, a good portion of the audience was very little children. And after curtain call, we were out in the lobby, and they were filing out of the auditorium and saying hi to the cast members, and they were cowering in fear. They were terrified of me. So I guess that is a somewhat like a backwards compliment. It at least says that I was convincing as a villain. So that was cool.
Did you guys know that our production of Frozen had the most shows that any North Penn theater production has had?
We all knew that, Audrey.
What? Stop.
Wow.
You're ruining my
kidding.
you're
That's
ruining
awesome.
my transition.
That's so cool.
I never
That's
knew
really
that.
awesome.
Whoa! It was a privilege to be the first show at North Penn to do 2 weekends.
Privilege and an honor.
So, how do you think, because we had so much extra time, so how do you think opening night went, and then how did that change till the second weekend to closing night?
Okay. I thought all of our shows were absolutely amazing. But coming out right from tech and jumping into opening night, it was sort of like a baby. Like a little, like you need to hold the show's hand. And it was just like, it was really good, but we were just, I feel like a little rocky, like it was new and fresh. But by closing night of the second weekend, like we were very, very comfortable with the show, and we just knew it like the back of our hand.
Like in addition to like obviously getting more comfortable with characters and the cast and everything, like it was so many mixed emotions, because opening night you have the excitement of getting to perform this show in front of like a full house and just the happiness, and then closing night it's like you're sad but also you're happy that it happened. And I think after 2 weekends it just felt really complete, and having like doing that many shows, it just felt like everything was like absolutely finished and we felt good about it. So
The show is really cool because it deals with a lot of relationships. It feels way more character-based than it does plot-based. And one of the big important themes is the theme of sisterhood, which is very prevalent in Frozen. And as Nora and Ella, as you both have sisters, did you guys integrate any of those feelings for your siblings into the characters?
So, I have a younger sister, and I also have older sisters. So I felt very familiar with like the relationship between sisters and like the real side to that. And I also recently lost my older sister. So like playing the younger sister in the show of like an older sister that's closed off and like doesn't want to talk to you and doesn't want to hurt you, it just felt very, very real to me. And singing I Can't Lose You every night was just, I had to push away a little bit of the personal stuff, but it made me really connect to the show and the character.
I remember you, Nora, mentioning how you wanted to find your own Anna and not to kind of copy or take too much inspiration from the movie version. So how important was it for you to create and discover your own Anna, and how did you do it?
So I found it a little difficult not to just like copy and paste the movie, because I already see so much of myself in like the actual character, and I've just always connected with Anna. So I really looked to like the new material in the musical that wasn't in the movie, like Climbing the Mountain with Jack and What Do You Know About Love, to try and find like the braver and spunkier side to Anna. So that's how I like found my own self in the character.
Cool. And as well as Anna's rambunctious personality, as a foil to that, Elsa's character is far more reserved. And so Elsa's a huge emotionally dynamic character. I mean, you have the reserved beginning, and then once she learns to like let it go, she becomes much more freer and comfortable. So what was your process in handling such a complicated character, and did you learn anything new about your character in the process?
So I found this process very difficult personally, because like I've also never played a big role and I haven't been too comfortable in my acting, but I always felt like I could relate more to her like reserved side because I'm pretty reserved and quiet. But then learning how she actually lets it go and becoming more comfortable with that, I learned that you just have to like believe in yourself and know that like it's okay to like be big and like just go for it, because like that was something I really struggled with. But as I working on it over the months, that became something that was easier for me, and like doing the shows over the weekends just, yeah, it really helped with that.
Jamie, in this one, you are playing the villain, which is unlike a role you've had in a while, if I'm remembering correctly. So how was playing the villain for you? How was making that switch from Hans being such a happy-go-lucky, perfect candidate for Anna into being this guy who's trying to kill her entire family and become king?
Well, you have to start small. So one of the first things that I did was I started talking with Mrs. Roney a little bit about characterization, some dramaturgy stuff. And you have to build both sides of it, because there is that switch. But you start off as this, really dreamy, perfect guy, right? Seemingly perfect, right? And then there's that switch, and you become this maniacal, deranged villain who's, wielding a sword over his head and everything.
True love's kiss. Oh, Anna. If only there were someone out there who loved you.
What? You said you did.
I lied.
So yeah, you have to like figure out where he's coming from in both sides and find out what his motive is at different, checkpoints during the show almost. So we almost like, our headcanon almost is that he this is not the first kingdom that he's tried to do this to. And that he's like a pro at this. So that's why he's like a master of disguise, right?
I don't think I ever thought I would ever hear anyone utter headcanon.
No, that's the right word.
It is the right word, you're
It
right.
is the right word.
You know
I
what the
just
Frozen
didn't
fan base is like.
think I would ever hear that word out loud. Ever.
Okay.
Yeah. Jamie, what do you think was a bigger symbol of your character, your hair or your cape?
That is a heavy-hitting question, I gotta tell you. I think the synergy of the two of them was like really something special. I wish my hair looked like that all the time, and I also wish that it were like socially acceptable to wear a cape all the time, because you can start to wield it and it's really cool.
Is that how you got into character, by wielding your cape?
Be looking like Batman the whole time.
I don't know. I feel like the costume and my appearance and everything was super integral to me finding my character, because that meant that I could take it away from the Disney one, because I looked princely, but I didn't look like the character from the movie, and that meant that I could find my own Hans in that sense.
Jamie, how did Love is an Open Door, how did that inform your character decisions?
Love is an Open Door is such a fun song, and performing it with Nora was, really fun. We got pretty good at it by the end. It is, it's a great song, but it's also a really important moment in the plot of the show. And we sort of worked to convey that a little bit through Mrs. Buckner's genius choreography. In the beginning, you can notice that like me and Nora are like playing a little bit more shy, almost like not wanting to look at each other for too long, or uncomfortable touching hands for very long or whatever. And by the end of it, I'm picking her up and flinging her around and everything, right? So there is that development between our two characters, and the audience really starts to fall in love with the idea that Hans is this perfect guy, right? And that really builds to the shock that comes with the switch. But yeah, it's such an amazing moment in the show.
Jack, Kristoff maybe has the most relationships in Frozen than any other character. Maybe Anna. Anna has plenty. But so you have the romantic with Anna, and then friendship with Sven, and familial with the trolls. I mean, the hidden folk. So how was the process of developing those relationships?
So I think developing like the friendly relationship with Sven and the familiar relationship with the hidden folk was definitely the easier of the relationships that like Christoph had to form throughout the play. Like they're the ones that already existed, and they're the ones that like I exhibit most in my own life. So I think that was definitely like an easier thing for me to channel in like me being Christoph. But I think the romantic relationship with Anna and with Nora was definitely like more difficult to get through. Not only because it's like not something I'm as familiar with, but also because there's a development that has to happen there. You know, with Sven and with the hidden folk, like they're his people, like they're his rocks, literally. But thank you so much. They're his rocks, literally. But like this one really develops throughout the play, so we go from like adversaries.
Sven, what do you think? Well, Christoph, I think she's gonna die on her own.
Adversaries to friends to, you know, lovers. So yeah, that's definitely like difficult. And you know, I struggled with it a lot. Like there were a lot of rehearsals where I was like really disappointed in myself, and Mrs. Roney wasn't happy with us, and I felt like I was letting people down. But I just had to. I went to States for 3 days. I took a break, came back, and things were. All right, enough. When I went to States for 3 days, I went away. Had to take some time away. I come back, and it really started to like click. So I think struggling with finding that relationship was definitely what made it stronger in the end, and what made it work. Right, Nora?
Yes, Jack.
As much as your character is sort of there to help the sisters, and you're not really there as comedic relief because that's Olaf and Oaken and all the O names. Mm-hmm. But you have some of those comedic moments within playing Sven's voice.
Correct.
How did you develop Sven's voice? What can you please show us?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of the comedy that Christoph had was only Sven. Sometimes he'd be like, "Oh my God, the audience is laughing at me. I'm so funny." And then I'm like, "Then Audrey, you're like moving your feet," and they're like, "Oh my God, it's the funniest thing ever." I'm like, "Great, like that's awesome." But I don't know. I didn't really develop it. It just kind of happened one day, you know. I lived through puberty, so
Sven spoke through you.
Yeah, Sven literally lives in me. I think the Sven voice was not difficult at all, and it was just pure fun. That's the one time I didn't feel like I was really letting people down. It was always when I did the Sven voice.
I don't know, Sven. I think they're just jealous. Why? 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 Sven, don't you think that's true? Yeah, people will beat you and curse you and cheat you. Every one of them's bad except you. Thanks, buddy. Staffs.
It was always very good.
Yeah, the straight voice was harder than the Sven voice.
Demonstrate.
Oh, what should I say?
I don't know.
Hi, I'm Jack Bachman, and this is Frozen Defrosted.
Cute. Speaking of Sven had a very physically draining costume. But you know who else had a physically draining costume? Nick Gopel. That man is a trooper. Were you allergic to your face paint?
I don't know. All I know is it burned.
Oh! And you overheated almost every night.
This is true. So did you, though.
Right there with you. Would you like to speak about how getting your costume, did that make you feel more like you were playing Olaf?
Just first about the development of the costume. I have to give so much credit to the entirety of costume crew, Mrs. Biegert especially. She put in so much time and effort into making that costume the best that it could be. And it turned out really well. She started off with a design and then developed and adapted. And her and so many other people all worked together to really make a really awesome costume that made the role so much fun to do, even though singing in summer was a little difficult with how hot it was. But getting that costume on just really solidified it for me. And everything I did and all the work that everybody put into the show, I feel like when I put on that costume, I could feel that more.
And Jack Salata, you also had a difficult kind of role, not physically difficult like Nick, but you were both Pabby and Hans's understudy. So how was juggling both of those roles and the commitment that came with it?
The only way I can kind of describe this starting out is like when the cast list first came out. I remember I was sitting in a Pizza Hut, and that's important to the story, guys. The cast list comes out, I'm like, oh my god, I'm Pabby, I gotta lead this year. How awesome is that? And then I look down, I'm like, I have to follow Jamie. So if something happens to him, I'm doomed. So that kind of like the little bit of fear in my brain that like Jamie could die that night and I'd have to go on. I'm not saying he would, but like if he did.
I'm glad you're only worried about your own self-interest after I
much.
die,
Wow.
Jack. My goodness. True colors.
But in all seriousness, like it was a lot of fun because I had to kind of go from two different sides. I had to go from like an old guy who like his movements and his talking I copied from the people that I spy on from work. But like Hans, I couldn't really copy anyone, so I kind of just went with Jamie on that one.
Nick Nardone, you and Katie, who played Queen Iduna, you guys probably spent the most time working with the littles. How was that experience? Like, how was playing their parents?
It was honestly like really fun. The nice thing about all the kids was that like they were so compatible and they were so nice to us, and I tried to take the niceness and give it to them because they're actors just like the rest of us. We should give them the respect that they want to give us. And to see them act so happy and joyful whenever they're all around us is honestly one of the most enjoyable things that I have ever had with a theater experience.
And you were also cast as Oaken, who everyone knows is very quirky. In what ways did you play with the character and his quirks?
So, if you know anything about me, you know I am a little crazy. So, with the character of Oaken, I try to tap into all of those things, as well as being a little more unhinged with it. And tapping into the character was a lot easier, considering that I was in a very physical, change in uniform with, a fat suit, the wig. It felt like a whole different person. So it was definitely a lot easier to play that person rather than being myself playing someone.
Miss Avery Lawrence.
Hello, Audrey.
Because you're one of the ensemble members, you were in almost all of the big numbers, is that right? You were probably one of the people who got to see the dynamics of the cast more than others, because you saw the entire company a lot. What was it like backstage during rehearsals versus during the show?
So something that I think is really special is that this cast truly felt like a big family. It was definitely a little difficult for a lot of the cast to go from being, loud and having so much fun with numbers like Huga and Fixer Upper to having to be very quiet backstage with mics. It was just such a nice experience to be able to make so many new friends and be around so many talented people that have taught me so much. The dynamic backstage was so much fun. I can't even imagine learning a 7-minute number dancing in a towel with anybody else, like Owen or any of the sophomores or juniors. Something that I think was also really rewarding was seeing my friends on stage. I think there's nothing more powerful than seeing your friends do what they're good at and having so much fun doing it.
Favorite memory of the show? Go.
I was trying to think about what my favorite memory would be this whole time, and I feel like it would do such a discredit to all those fun moments of having to choose a favorite memory. So Frozen has just been my favorite show of all time. I loved every single second of it, and I have those snapshots in my heart, as Mrs. Roney says. So, mic drop. I have the snapshots in my heart, Jack, of us.
Besides smooching Nora every night, my favorite memory was before the last show, we were doing warm-ups, and we got called in way too early, like we usually do, and we were just messing around during warm-ups. We were doing 4 count, which is, for those who don't know, is like a warm-up that we do where we all copy the other person's move. And we got done warm-ups. We were sitting there, and the auditorium was dark. And then we do this thing, before rehearsals, where we vogue, i.e. this. and we like just like duck walk around the auditorium, and it's really funny. And we were in this big circle, and they turned off the lights, and Noah Golden turned on like these party lights, and then the music was blasting, and we were like, people would go in the middle of the circle and vogue, and it was just like the funniest moment. Like it was so, and I finally did a death drop, which I have been waiting to do all show. It was truly my favorite. No, but that was my favorite moment of Frozen by far, and it was the last show, which made it really, really wonderful and satisfying. So yes.
There are so many snapshots in my heart. But anyway, if I had to choose a favorite memory, it's probably probably the last show. And I looked out and realized that some of these people were going to be leaving. And I thought to myself, this is really sad. And then I realized maybe it's the experience that matters, and getting to do the show with these people is what matters. And the fact that it's fleeting makes it special. And just realizing that for me made this experience just so much more rewarding. So looking back, I treasure all of these memories, really.
That was so well said.
It's beautiful, Nick.
Oh my God.
It was the last show, the last introduction to Hyuga I would ever do. And it was during the improv section where I would like get the audience to say Hyuga.
Really loud. Lida, say Hyuga. Hyuga! That's how loud I want it to be. Say Hyuga as loudly and enthusiastically as you can!
And I wanted this last one to be special in a way that the other shows hadn't been. I'm like, how do I explain that this is the last show before, like, without saying blatantly it's the last show? And I came up with, this is the last time I will be selling in this location. That was magical for me because not only was it the last one, I managed to find a way to make it my own.
This was also during the last show. Right in Colder by the Minute, as Elsa freezes everything, we're all kind of frozen in time. And at that point, I'm like laying on one of my friend's shoulders. And at that point, I was already crying. And Elsa unfreezes everything. And like Owen said, we're going and we're hugging and we're greeting. But I think that was the night that it felt the most genuine, because that was like, that was a lot of our goodbyes. And looking around on stage, I probably wasn't even singing. I was just mouthing the words. Because I couldn't, I was crying. It was just a really special moment. My other favorite memory was falling on the first live stream. I slipped during Colder by the Minute, so it's a love-hate relationship with that song.
I also fell during Colder by the Minute.
I fell during the last show.
Ella, I think
I fell during Colder by the Minute.
I fall like 5 times canonically.
Yeah, I never fall. It was worth it.
Wow.
It was worth it.
I have 2 favorite moments, and one of them was when the little girls were backstage during one of the shows, and they were doing like a little quick change thing before they had to go back on. And neither of them were ready. And their cue happened as they were still off stage, and costume crew was trying to put their costumes on. And the amount of professionalism these little girls showed, it gave me so much hope for what North End Theater will be. And Jocelyn and Bella, it was you two, and you guys are just adorable and everything. And Brennan and Yana, you guys too. It's just amazing. And then my second favorite is definitely going out after the shows and meeting the little kids who came to see us. Just seeing the joy that we brought to these little kids was really special, and I'll never forget that. So thank you guys. That is a wrap on Frozen Defrosted. Woo! No more will I record anything for this.
She's gonna catch up on so
That's
much
actually
sleep.
probably. And then we're like, oh.
So great.
The banging thing.
Besides smooching Nora every night,
What is happening?
Ella.